Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, and welcome to Command Power, the show where we discuss all things Magic the Gathering with a focus on Commander. And today we're doing a fresh new batch of Warhammer 40k spoilers, so without further ado, let's get started. And we're starting with Keeper of Secrets, a 5 colorless, 1 red, creature demon with first strike and haste, and it has Symphony of Pain. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, Keeper of Secrets deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to target opponent. So this is a nice little bit of burn for those kind of decks that want to be doing this, such as Prosper or the new Gruul one that casts things from exile, or even Atali could be pretty nice. And coming in with first strike and haste means it's going to be pretty difficult to block this, so this should guarantee a nice little bit of damage in those kind of decks. Next up we have Lucius the Eternal for 3 colors, 1 black and 1 red. It's a 5/3 haste legendary creature, Astartes warrior. And when it dies, exile it instead and choose target creature an opponent controls. When that creature leaves the battlefield, return Lucius the Eternal from exile to the battlefield under its owner's control. I mean, this is kind of a good build around. It's kind of interesting that you can just keep bringing him back without having to pay command attacks as long as you kill the creature involved. I don't think the power level is super high, but should be a fun build around nevertheless. Next up we have Let the Galaxy Burn for X colorless, 5 colorless and 1 red. It has Cascade, and Let the Galaxy Burn deals X plus 2 damage to each creature that didn't enter the battlefield this turn. This is an interesting kind of design because it is super expensive, but it could be pretty good if you play it for 8 or so, and it's going to deal 4 damage to the entire board. That's pretty solid. And the fact that it can probably cascade into a creature means you're going to have something on the board, and our opponents are very likely not if you're playing this correctly. Obviously, you want to play it in a deck that can make a lot of mana and very big mana. Also, having an X value cascade spell is kind of interesting because you can kind of adjust how much you want to cascade into. Pretty cool card overall, and the failsafe of playing it for 6 mana and clearing all the tokens on the board isn't that bad too. Next up we have Kill, Maim, Burn. 3 colors, 1 black and 1 red. It's an instant. Choose one or more, destroy target artifact, destroy target creature, or Kill, Maim, Burn deals 3 damage to target player. So the name aside, this is pretty decent. It's just a little bit expensive. You're going to get to kill 1 creature and 1 artifact for 5 mana and then throw in 3 damage there, because why not? Seems fine. Next up we have Aspiring Champion, 3 colorless and 1 red for a creature, Astartes warrior, 3/3 with Menace and Ruinous Ascension. When it deals combat damage to a player, sacrifice it. If you do reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle the rest into your library. If it's a demon, it deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. So a nice kind of polymorph effect. Is going to depend on you being able to hit with it because it has Menace. Could be decent in a deck that has a lot of big creatures. The problem is it has a little bit of anti-synergy with itself because if you're running these kind of cards and then some big creatures, you might occasionally polymorph into this with another of your polymorph effects. So a little bit awkward. The Demon Clause is also not super relevant most of the time unless you're running a dedicated demon deck, but kind of fun card and might be decent. Next up is Magnus the Red for 3 colors, 1 blue, 1 red. It's a legendary creature, Demon Primark, 4/5 flying, and it has unearthly power. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each creature token you control, and Blade of Magnus. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, create a 3/3 red spawn creature token. Man, can this give your instants or sorceries a big discount. This is going to be really good with cards that make creature tokens, such as Dragon Fodder or Hordling Outburst. It's also going to work really well with X spells because once you have a bunch of tokens, then your X spells are going to become super cheap. And there are quite a few X spells that also make tokens, so it has a nice little bit of overlap synergy there, but this is just going to be really solid in any Spellslinger deck that cares about tokens because you're just going to get such a discount on your instants and sorceries, and it's a really cool build around. Look forward to seeing what people come up with this. Next up is the Horus Heresy. It's a saga for 3 colors, 1 blue, 1 black and 1 red. And chapter 1 says, for each opponent, gain control of up to 1 target non-legendary creature that player controls for as long as the Horus Heresy remains on the battlefield. Chapter 2, draw a card for each creature you control but don't own. And chapter 3, starting with you, each player chooses a creature, destroy each creature chosen this way. So usually the first chapter is going to be pretty solid. It's going to give you the creatures for 1 turn. You can then attack with them after you've drawn cards. I'm thinking you probably want to be sacking them before you return them, so you want to run this in a deck that can sack those creatures without difficulty. The third chapter is where this gets a little bit iffy, because everybody's going to be so annoyed with you at that point that they're almost certainly going to choose your creatures to be destroyed, so you're probably going to kill one thing and they're going to kill 3 of yours, which kind of probably feels... But if you can manage to politic your way out of it and make sure they don't kill your stuff, this is super good. Next up we have the Ruinous Powers. For 2 colorless, 1 black and 1 red, is an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose an opponent at random, exile exile the top card of that player's library. Until end of turn, you may play that card. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast it, and when you cast a spell this way, its owner loses life equal to its mana value. So it's basically just drawing us a card from the opponent's deck, and then when we play it, they're going to take damage equal to whatever the card costs. So this is pretty good in a Heated Sugu, Devouring Chaos kind of deck. Could potentially see play in Prosper as well. So many things see play in Prosper. Just a nice little bit of value engine that is probably going to annoy your opponents quite a little bit. Next up is Sloppity Bilepiper for 3 colors and 1 black. Creature demon, it has a really disgusting art. And Jolly Gut Pipes, 2 colorless and tap, sacrifice a creature. The next creature spell you cast this turn has Cascade. This is weird because we don't really have many mono black cards that Cascade, but I'm all for it. It is a little bit expensive to have to tap this and pay 2, but Cascade can do some degenerate things, so I'm totally fine with this. And black is not really primary in Cascade, so whatever, seems cool. Next up we have Heralds of Singe for 4 colorless and 1 blue. It's a creature demon with flying and Cascade. It's a 3/3. Not much to see here. Pretty solid filler card. Next up we have Pink Horror for 3 colors, 1 blue and 1 red. It's a creature demon horror 4/4. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Pink Horror deals 2 damage to any target, and it has split. When Pink Horror dies, create 2 blue and red demon horror creatures tokens named Blue Horror with whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, this creature deals 1 damage to any target. I think this is actually surprisingly good. It's like a gutter snipe effect, which is already quite playable in Spellslinger decks, on a bigger body. But then when it dies, you're going to get basically the same effect, because you're going to get 2 smaller copies, but they each do 1 damage each. So basically, you're not losing out on that. So it's just a very difficult to remove Gutter Snipe. They have to exile this, waste an exile removal on it, or basically you're going to be keeping the effect after they kill it the first time. This seems really solid to me. Next up is Lord of Change for 6 colors and 1 blue. It's a creature demon 6/6 with flying, ward 3, and Architect of Deception. When Lord of Change enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards. Not much to say here, just a chunky dude with some nice defense that's going to replace itself and then some when it enters the battlefield. I kind of like this. I mean, it's expensive, but it's good. Next up is Great Unclean One. It's 4 colorless, 1 black, creature demon 4/5, reverberating summons. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses 2 life. Then for each opponent who has less life than you, create a 1/3 black demon creature token named Plague Bearer of Nurgle. So this is interesting in a bunch of token strategies. It can be good in stacks for black. For example, I can see this in Braids or as a Nightmare. It could be quite good there. It's just going to burn your opponents for a little bit and make some little sacrifice fodder. Kind of decent. If you can get to 2 tokens per turn from this, this is pretty solid. It's kind of weird though, because in the Warhammer universe, the Great Unclean Ones are like these massive greater demons, but this seems a little bit underwhelming for what that is. Next up we have Blight Grenade for 4 colorless and 1 black. It's a sorcery, destroy target creature, and all creatures get -3/-3 until end of turn. This is kind of interesting. It's going to let you do it with 1 big pesky thing that wouldn't die to the -3/-3, and then it's going to let you wipe the board of small creatures. I think that's flexible enough that this might actually see some play. Next up is Mutalith Vortex Beast for 4 colors, 1 blue, 1 red, creature, mutant beast, 6/6 trample, and Warp Vortex. When Mutalith Vortex Beast enters the battlefield, flip a coin for each opponent you have. For each flip you win, draw a card. For each flip you lose, it deals 3 damage to that player. So this one's really good, and it's going to be amazing in any kind of coin flip deck. When it enters the battlefield, you can draw 3 cards or deal 9 damage. Obviously, drawing the cards is better, but the other one isn't negative either, and the stats you're getting are fine for the cost. If you have a way to reuse this, like blinking it or the like, then this is going to get out of hand pretty quick, and I just think it's a really cool card. Next up is Mortarion, Demon Primark for 5 colorless and 1 black, legendary creature, Demon Primark. It's a flying 5/6 with Primark of the Death Guard. At the beginning of your end step, you may play X colorless. If you do, create X 2/2 black Astartes warrior creature tokens with Menace. X can't be greater than the amount of life you lost this turn. Wow, that is a pretty good one. It's going to be really good in Kurik, Son of Yawgmoth, because you lose a lot of life in that deck. But this can go in a bunch of decks that lose life, and it's going to make a lot of tokens. This seems quite strong as long as you have enough mana to pay. So maybe a black-green one, like the Witherbloom Commander that lets you put counters equal to the life that you lost this turn. This would probably love this card as well. Next up is Mandate of Aberdeen, 3 colorless and 1 black for a sorcery. Choose target creature you control, destroy all creatures with power less than that creature's power. This should be a board wipe in the right deck, and 4 mana for a board wipe is pretty solid, particularly in black, so I think this card has got potential. Next up is Hellbrute for 3 colorless, 1 black, 1 red, artifact creature, Astartes, Dreadnought. It has haste, and it's a 5/4, and it's a 5/4. It has haste and sarcophagus. You may cast Hellbrute from your graveyard by exiling another creature card from your graveyard in addition to paying its other costs. Well, there's probably a lot of shenanigans you can do here. It's basically an escape for only 1 exile, and you're getting a 5/4 haste body on this. This kind of gives a lot of inevitability to those kind of decks, because you're going to have to deal with this a bunch of times or exile it, or it's just going to keep coming back and hitting you for 5 hasty damage each time. It's going to be good for finishing games. Next up we have Plague Drone for 3 colorless and 1 black. It's a creature, demon, 3/3 flying with Rotfly. If an opponent would gain life, that player loses that much life instead. So this is Tainted Remedy on a 3/3 flyer for 4 mana. Is that good? It's probably pretty good. I mean, Tainted Remedy doesn't make its way into more decks because it's an enchantment that does nothing if your opponent isn't gaining life, but Plague Drone is on a pretty decent body, so it seems quite good, and it can absolutely hose some decks out there. Next up we have Nurgle's Conscription for 4 colorless and 1 black. It's an instant. Put target creature card from an opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield tapped under your control, then exile that player's graveyard. I really like this. I love cards that steal and reanimate stuff from our opponent's graveyard, and this is an instant speed one as well. This is really good. And it also is graveyard hate as well, so what's not to love about this? I think it's awesome. And finally we have Nurgle's Rot for 1 black. It's an enchantment aura, enchant creature an opponent controls. When it dies, return Nurgle's Rot to its owner's hand, and you create a 1/3 black demon creature token named Plaguebearer of Nurgle. This seems really underwhelming to me. Like, what's the point of this card? Super slow, super clunky, and the only thing you get is a 1/3 out of it. Leave this card to rot in your collection. Oh! Well, there you have it. Those have been all of the cards for today's video. What did you think? Are there any cards that have particularly caught your eye? Let me know in the comment section below. I read all the comments and respond to all of them. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click like or subscribe. I am currently growing the channel and it really helps me a lot. And until next time, take care.